Watch it, Alan. I'm shooting.
Hello all out there on YouTube, and welcome back to my channel. Say hello to my little buddy Pippa here. I'm at Teddy and Pippa's house for a few days, and they have graciously allowed me to film a video here. So nothing says horror like a happy fluffy golden retriever and a happy fluffy corgi, striking fear into the hearts of everybody. Fear me! They're good dogs, some of my favorites. Anyway, I wanted to do a top 10 list for this video. I did a top 5 for my last video, and I still had that ranking urge in my body, so I decided to do a top 10 list. And I had been thinking a lot about double features. I love a good double feature, you know, finding just the right movies to put together and then watching one after the other. Back in the glory days of grindhouse cinema, you know, from the 70s and the 80s, you had so many theaters that would play double features. They'd play one set of trailers, then play one movie, and then play another set of trailers, and then play another movie. There's just something about finding the perfect double feature, finding the two best movies to go together. It just makes for an extra fun movie night, I think. And so I thought, what the hell, let's do a list of 10 horror movie double features that would make for a fun movie night. Now, this isn't a typical ranking top 10 list. I'm not really counting down these movies from number 10 to number 1. What I did here was I picked certain subgenres, and then I picked 2 movies within that subgenre that I think would make a good double feature for that specific genre. That is until we get to the number 1 spot. The final spot on this list are 2 movies that I think make for the perfect double feature. But until we get to the number 1 spot, the rest of these movies aren't. The rest of these categories aren't really in any order, just focusing on specific subgenres. And this isn't really talking about the quality of the movies. This isn't so much saying that this movie is better than that movie, or these 2 movies are better than these 2 movies. It's literally just focusing on 2 movies that go well together and that would make for a good double feature. So this isn't really talking about the quality of the movies, it's talking about how well these movies go together for a double feature. And on that note, let's get into the top 10. 10 picks, so 20 movies, but 10 picks of what I think are good double features that would make for a fun movie night. So for the first category, we're going to go with slasher movies, and I decided to start with this genre because slasher films are some of the most notorious. Like, the slasher genre is like the most notorious genre in the horror genre, and so I figured it would be appropriate to start with that one. I thought about going with some holiday slashers, but I decided the 2 movies that I picked for the slasher movie double feature are The Burning and Sleepaway Camp. And the reason these 2 movies go together is, obviously, they're both summer camp slasher movies. And of course, you could have gone with the Friday the 13th movies, you could have gone with Madman, my favorite summer camp slasher movie, but I decided to go with The Burning and Sleepaway Camp because these are the 2 summer camp slasher movies where the camps are open and there are actually kids at the summer camp. So that's why I think they go well together. When picking double features, you want to pick 2 movies that fit together but aren't too similar. You want to have a feeling of similarities between the 2 movies, but you want there to also be enough differences so it doesn't feel like you're watching just the same movie back to back. And with The Burning and Sleepaway Camp, yes, it does have those similarities, but they both feel different enough from each other so that they work as a double feature. Like with The Burning, it's one of those slashers where we don't see the killer's face, but we know who the killer is. So the killer has a somewhat of a design. The killer is Cropsey in The Burning. And in Sleepaway Camp, not to spoil it for anyone who has not seen Sleepaway Camp, but it's one of those hidden killers. It's like, in that movie, we don't really see the killer, we just see what the killer's doing until we find out who the killer is towards the end of the film. And yes, you do get a strong feeling for who the killer is in Sleepaway Camp throughout the film. It is pretty predictable, but then, you know, it does have some little flips here and there that will throw you off every now and again. They each have that campy, pun intended, charm to them. You know, that sort of over-the-top acting, the charming cheesiness to both of them. And both of them have some legitimately great kills. And both movies have some really iconic kills. Iconic to slasher fans and cult movie fans and stuff like that. Like in The Burning, you have the famous raft sequence, and in Sleepaway Camp, we have the curling iron sequence. I'm not going to say more about that for those who haven't seen the film, but for those who have seen the film, oh, you know. And then, of course, Sleepaway Camp has an iconic ending. Again, not to spoil it here, but again, if you've seen the movie, you know. So yes, for the slasher movie category, I picked The Burning and Sleepaway Camp because they're both summer camp slasher movies, helping them fit together. But both movies have their similarities, but they feel different enough from each other so that it doesn't, the premise doesn't get stale. It's not like, okay, I'm watching a summer camp slasher and then going with another summer camp slasher. It's, you know, they have similarities but enough differences so that once you're done with one, you can still have fun with the other. And for the next category, we're going with zombie movies. Because zombies is another very big genre a very big subgenre in horror. You know, slasher movies and zombie movies. Some of the first things that come to your mind when it comes to horror. Now, the easy way to go would be to pick two George Romero zombie movies. You know, Night of the Living Dead and Dawn of the Dead would make a great double feature as well, but I didn't want to go that way. I didn't want to just pick movie. I know that all three movies in George Romero's Dead series are different movies, and they're kind of called a trilogy because they have the same themes, but I didn't want to just pick movies from the same trilogy or the same series, because that's an easy way to go. You know, Alien and Aliens is a great double feature, but I didn't want to just pick sequels. I thought that would be too easy. So, in a zombie double feature, yes, you kind of do have to go with a Romero zombie movie, and I decided for my zombie double feature, it would be Day of the Dead and Return of the Living Dead. And the reason I picked Day of the Dead and Return of the Living Dead, Day of the Dead focuses on the more traditional zombies, and Return of the Living Dead are non-traditional zombies. When we think of the Romero zombies, you know, we think of the slow-moving zombies, they eat human flesh, they're not that smart. In Return of the Living Dead, you have zombies that are, they are undead, but they are still them when it comes to what's going on in their heads. Like, in Romero zombies, they're zombies. You know, the person who became a zombie is gone, but in Return of the Living Dead, the person who becomes the zombie is still the person, they just are now zombies. And there is that element of cannibalism in both movies. Like in Romero zombie movies, they eat flesh, but the Return of the Living Dead zombies eat brains. And there's more differences because with the Romero-style zombies, you can kill them by destroying the brain. In the Return of the Living Dead zombies, the infection or whatever it is in the nerves. So you can chop off a head and both will still be, the head and the body will still be moving around. You can chop off an arm and it can still be crawling around. The Return of the Living Dead zombies think, they set traps, they run, and the only way you can kill a Return of the Living Dead zombie is if you burn the body until there's nothing left. But the reason I think these two movies go so well together is, one, they both have great gore effects. Two, while yes, the Romero zombies in Day of the Dead, we're focusing on the slow-moving Romero zombies, this is the movie that showed the zombies starting to evolve. You had Bub in this movie. There's a zombie named Bub who's starting to learn. You know, he's like, he's kind of learning about using tools. He's becoming very docile. He's becoming domesticated in many ways. So you have the zombies sort of building up into this, like, more evolved form of a zombie in Day of the Dead, at least the catalyst of zombies evolving. And then in Return of the Living Dead, you have the fully realized form of a zombie that has a form of intelligence and is quick and can form traps and things like that. So for my zombie double feature, Day of the Dead and Return of the Living Dead, two classic 80s zombie movies. They are fantastic. I will admit I am more of a Return of the Living Dead fan than I am a Day of the Dead fan, but they are both great zombie movies with gore and a lot of good zombie sequences. For the number 3 category, we are going with vampire movies. We're going down the list here of what people think of when they think the horror genre. We got slasher movies, we got zombie movies, we got vampire movies. And for my vampire double feature, we're having a very recent movie on this list, and people have talked about the connection between these movies since this recent movie came out. So for my vampire double feature, we have From Dusk Till Dawn and Sinners. Once again, we have that similarity between the two, but plenty of differences so that both movies feel similar enough, but different enough so that they can work well together without getting bored between movies. Sinners is a fantastic vampire film. I saw that a few weeks ago, and I absolutely loved it. A lot of people have pointed out that you can see inspiration from Dusk Till Dawn in Sinners. But Sinners is not a ripoff of From Dusk Till Dawn. There are similarities, but they are different movies. Yes, it would be foolish to say that Sinners was not inspired by From Dusk Till Dawn, but Sinners is still a fantastic movie, and it stands completely on its own. But because there is a similarity between Sinners and From Dusk Till Dawn, it makes perfect sense to put them together. And while From Dusk Till Dawn has a more fun nature to it, Sinners, while also having a fun nature to it, is a little more serious when it comes to the subject matter of the movie. There are themes in Sinners that you do not see in From Dusk Till Dawn, just like there are themes in From Dusk Till Dawn that you don't see in Sinners. Sinners is a little more of a serious movie, whereas From Dusk Till Dawn is a vampire movie that's trying to be more fun than serious, but it still has plenty of hard-hitting moments, just like Sinners has plenty of fun moments. Like, in Dusk Till Dawn, you have these two criminals who kidnap a family, and they're trying to escape over the border. And then in Sinners, you have these two brothers and their cousin trying to start a juke joint to make some money. And in both movies, the movie starts out as a crime film for most of it, and then turns into a vampire movie later on. But the main difference here is our main group of characters in From Dusk Till Dawn end up at a bar that you find out is run by vampires. In Sinners, you have our main characters making a bar or a club, and the vampires are trying to get inside. Sinners really focuses on that whole vampires needing to be invited in to your house, and that makes for some fun and suspenseful scenarios. There is fantastic commentary in Sinners, and there's a lot of fun, wackiness in From Dusk Till Dawn. But they do go very well together just because of the similarities between the two. Both great movies. From Dusk Till Dawn, one of the best vampire movies of the 90s, and I will easily say that Sinners is one of the best vampire movies from the 2020s, so that's another reason why they go so well together. For those of you who have seen Sinners, you know it's a great movie. If you have not seen Sinners, check it out. It's available to stream right now, and I believe it's on Blu-ray now. And I think what better way, if you have not seen Sinners, I think what better way to discover Sinners than by watching it with a double feature from Dusk Till Dawn. Two great vampire movies, watching them together, having a great movie night, warm yourself up with From Dusk Till Dawn, and then go into Sinners and have a great movie night. And since we talked about vampires, now we have to go into one of my favorite monsters when it comes to horror, werewolves. So for the next category, we have werewolf movies. I've made it very clear that I've been vampired out for a long time. I'm finally, starting to get back into vampire movies again. But, for the longest time, same thing with zombie movies. For the longest time, we were getting so much vampire material, we were getting so much zombie material that I kind of went through fatigue with both genres. But that fatigue is finally starting to relax, and I'm finally starting to be able to enjoy these genres again. But when it comes down to it, I'm a werewolf fan. There are plenty of vampire movies I love, but I love werewolf movies, and, I'm a werewolf guy. Now, the predictable way to go would be The Howling and An American Werewolf in London. And both are great movies, yes, and while The Howling is going to remain in this category, I decided not to include An American Werewolf in London in this category, because that's the predictable way to go. I wanted to try to go a little different route here. The Howling is my favorite werewolf movie. I love that movie so much, and I do like it a bit more than An American Werewolf in London, but rest assured, American Werewolf in London is an incredible movie, and for many people that is their favorite werewolf movie, and I completely understand why. But for this double feature, I decided to put my favorite werewolf movie with a very underappreciated werewolf movie. So for this double feature, it is The Howling and Dog Soldiers. Dog Soldiers was directed by Neil Marshall, the same guy who directed The Descent. And The Descent is a fantastic movie, but as great as The Descent is, I like Dog Soldiers a little more, just a little more though, and that's because it's a werewolf movie and I love werewolves. Dog Soldiers is one of the best werewolf movies to come out post-2000. And it's a very simple movie. You have a group of soldiers doing a training exercise. They run into a colony of werewolves, and they they lock themselves in this cabin, and they have to try to fend off the werewolves until morning. That's the very basics of the plot. There is more to it than that, but that is the basics of it. And the reason I put these two movies together is because both movies deal with groups of werewolves. In American Werewolf in London, you only have one werewolf. In The Howling, you have a colony of werewolves, and in Dog Soldiers, you have a family of werewolves. So both movies deal with multiple werewolves that our protagonists have to deal with. Plus, both movies deal with bipedal werewolves, and when it comes to my preferred werewolves, I love werewolves in general. I love the wolf men type of werewolves, where it's clearly a human-wolf hybrid. I love the designs where it looks more like a monster wolf that crawls on all fours, but my favorite design for werewolves is bipedal werewolves, because in my mind, that is a wolf monster. And both movies have some fantastic werewolf designs, and again, because they both involve werewolves that walk on two legs, I think they fit a little better together. Now, one of the reasons why The Howling is my favorite werewolf movie is because it does have traditional werewolf stuff, but it does things differently. It does have traditional werewolf lore, but it also does stuff different from traditional werewolf lore. And when you look at Dog Soldiers, yeah, it does focus more on traditional werewolf lore in that case. But Dog Soldiers is an action movie. It is a bit of a siege movie. I like to describe it as kind of, Night of the Living Dead, but more more Assault on Precinct 13 with werewolves. The wolves are fantastic. There is great action. You really like these characters. There's some great chemistry between these characters. The only thing I'm disappointed at about Dog Soldiers is we don't get a great transformation. It's less about the transformations in this movie and more about the wolves attacking this cabin and the soldiers trying to fend them off. But I do wish we had a good transformation in Dog Soldiers. But The Howling makes up for that. And while, yes, The Howling's transformation isn't nearly as good as the transformation in American Werewolf in London, it's still a great transformation. And there is a fun connection here. Rick Baker, who did the effects work for American Werewolf in London, was originally doing the effects for The Howling. But then John Landis started making his werewolf movie. Rick Baker apparently promised him that he was going to do the effects work for his movie. So Rick had to drop out of The Howling and start working on American Werewolf. And he gave the reins to Rob Bottin, who then would go on to do the effects work for The Thing. So there's a whole fun connections there. Yay, fun connections. The Howling and American Werewolf in London are two of the best werewolf movies, but I think Dog Soldiers deserves to be up there with them. And for a double feature, I think The Howling goes better with Dog Soldiers. It's a fun double feature for werewolf fans. My fellow werewolf fans, sound off in the comments section. Let me know you're out there. But yes, love werewolf movies, and I love The Howling, and I love Dog Soldiers, and just putting them together just makes sense to me. And the next category, I'm going with animal attack movies. I love animal attack movies. It's my comfort genre when it comes to movies. Like when I get home after a long day of work and I just want to put on a movie that's going to make me feel happy, I put in an animal attack flick. It's just, like I said, it's my comfort genre. I love these movies so much. And for my animal attack double feature, I'm going with Jaws and Grizzly. Jaws is one of my favorite movies of all time, and without question it's the best animal attack movie. I live on Cape Cod, and Jaws is a big deal on Cape Cod. Jaws was filmed in Martha's Vineyard, which is a part of Cape Cod, so it's a big deal here. If you move to Massachusetts, you have to love Jaws. I think it's the law. So naturally, yes, Jaws is a good pick for an animal attack movie, and the reason I put it with Grizzly is because Grizzly is a Jaws ripoff. I love me a good Jaws ripoff. And I almost went with Piranha for this category because after Jaws, Piranha is my favorite animal attack flick, and Piranha is a Jaws ripoff, and I think it's the best Jaws ripoff. It's definitely my favorite Jaws ripoff. But I decided to go with Grizzly instead, because with Grizzly, they literally took the premise of Jaws, turned the shark into a giant grizzly bear, and put it in a state park in the middle of the woods. And yes, while Grizzly is a Jaws ripoff and they took the same premise, they are still very different from each other. There is enough difference between Grizzly and Jaws so that you can watch both back to back and not feel like you're just watching the same movie twice, obviously because one's a shark and one's a bear. But even with that, there's still enough different in Grizzly to make it, seem like you're not just watching Jaws with a bear. And the other reason why I think these two movies work together is because they both are 70s PG movies. And I've talked about this before, but I love talking about it. I've always been fascinated by the history of the rating system. From 1968, when the rating system was created, to 1984, there was no PG-13 rating. It was G, PG, and R. So PG actually meant parental guidance. That meant that if you watched a movie with a PG rating, you might be seeing something that might be a little too much for someone on the younger side. And Jaws and Grizzly are perfect examples of that, because you have some gruesome scenes in Jaws. It's not like rated R again, but there are some gruesome scenes in Jaws, and there are some gruesome scenes in Grizzly. You know, like in Jaws, you have a guy getting bitten by a shark, and while it's not like incredibly graphic, you do see his severed leg float to the bottom of bottom of the ocean with a mangled end. And in Grizzly, you have a woman who gets both her arms lopped off by the grizzly bear as she gets thrown against a tree or something like that. You know, rated PG. And that's something I get a kick out of because, you know, nowadays PG has kind of been neutered over the years. But back in the 70s, PG was a bit hardcore. It's basically what PG-13 would be today. But as an Animal Attack fan, I obviously love Jaws, and I thought a Jaws ripoff would pair perfectly with Jaws, and I decided to go with Grizzly. You know, you have a predator in the water, you have a predator on the land. It goes well together. Jaws and Jaws ripoff going hand in hand. It's like a Reese's peanut butter cup. Two flavors that go well together. And now for our number 6 category, I believe yes, we're at the number 6 spot. I don't know what direction I'm going in. I started going 10 to 1, and now I'm going 1 to 10. Like I said, the ranking doesn't really matter here. So yeah, for the number 6 spot, we're going with a body horror double feature. And when it comes to body horror, I mean, there are so many great movies. You know, you have some great Cronenberg movies with movies like The Fly and The Brood, Videodrome. But I wanted to pick 2 body horror movies that I think are a little more on the fun side of things. Because, like, you can have an intense double feature, and we're going to have a messed up double feature a little later, but with body horror, I thought it would be nice to pick 2 fun body horror movies, and I decided to go with two comedy body horror movies. Some people may think I'm cheating here because one of these movies could also be considered a zombie movie, but I have seen it put in the body horror category before, and I do think it is a body horror movie. So for the body horror double feature, we have Reanimator and Frankenhooker. Yes, there are zombie elements to both movies, but there are plenty of body horror elements to both movies as well. And that's one of the reasons why I think they go so well together, because while they are body horror movies, they could also kind of fit in the zombie zombie genre. Both movies involve mad scientists. Both are horror comedies, which is one of the reasons why they work so well together. They are plenty different enough, but they do definitely have similarities that help them fit together. Reanimator, one of my favorite 80s horror movies done by Stuart Gordon, one of my favorite horror directors, and I think one of the most underappreciated horror directors. Reanimator was influenced by the story by H.P. Lovecraft, but of course there were a lot of liberties taken with the story. It's a fantastic, very fun movie. And then we have Frankenhooker by another one of my favorite directors, Frank Henenlotter. I think both movies have humor to them, but I do think Frankenhooker leans a little more to the comedy side of things. But there's so much great, wacky moments in Frankenhooker that I absolutely love it. Both movies have their chaotic moments, but chaotic in different ways. Like in Reanimator, you have the third act where you have all these naked zombies attacking our main characters. In Frankenhooker, you have the fantastic scene where all the hookers that are going to be used for these experiments take super crack and they all explode. I'm being vague in this, and I know I'm not going into too much detail, but for those of you who have seen the movie, you know. Herbert West has so many great moments. He is just a fantastic character. Then you have the character Jeffrey from Frankenhooker, who is eccentric in his own ways. There is a chaotic nature to Herbert West, but it's a controlled chaotic nature, whereas with Jeffrey, it's more of a chaotic nature. You know, like, Herbert West is more reserved in his chaos. Jeffrey is more outward with his chaos. But with Reanimator and Frankenhooker, 2 of my favorite mad scientist movies, 2 of my favorite body horror movies, I absolutely love these movies, and I do think they go perfect together. So yes, for body horror, we have Reanimator, and we have Frankenhooker. For our number 7 category, we have cosmic horror. Now, body horror and cosmic horror have become my two favorite genres when it comes to horror. I love these two genres so much, and they do have a lot of bleed over with each other. There's a lot of cosmic horror movies that have body horror elements to them, and vice versa. So the two genres do go kind of together. And for my two choices for a cosmic horror double feature, we're having From Beyond and In the Mouth of Madness. Now, in my opinion, when it comes to cosmic horror, I think the best representations of the genre are The Thing, From Beyond, and In the Mouth of Madness. Stuart Gordon makes the list again with From Beyond. And while The Thing is great, I do think The Thing is fantastic. I just think that in terms of a double feature, From Beyond and In the Mouth of Madness go a little better together. John Carpenter directed both The Thing and In the Mouth of Madness, and I will say of these three movies, The Thing is my favorite, but In the Mouth of Madness is just such a great example. All three of them are just such great examples of cosmic horror. But From Beyond and In the Mouth of Madness just fit so well. There's that overall sense of something that is beyond our understanding with both movies. One of the main aspects of cosmic horror, especially in the aspects that were created by H.P. Lovecraft, who invented the genre, cosmic horror really deals with these entities or these outside forces that are so beyond human comprehension that just to encounter them would make you go mad. And that really is shown in both From Beyond and In the Mouth of Madness. How, like in both movies, they really capture that whole idea of encountering something that is so beyond you that it makes you go insane. In From Beyond, you have these two scientists experimenting with something called the resonator. And basically what it does is it stimulates your pineal gland and allows you to see or make contact with a world that is next to our own. You know, like there's this other world or other dimension with these creatures all around us, and we're never aware of each other because we're on different planes of existence, and basically it allows those two planes of existence to connect. Again, there's more to it than that, but that's the basics. And in the Mouth of Madness, you have this investigator looking for this horror author that has gone missing, and Sutter Kane is this horror author. And his books have been making people people who have been reading his books are starting to go insane. And basically, long story short, the investigator finds Sutter Kane in this town that exists only in his books. And then again, you know, it deals with great old ones and these otherworldly creatures and stuff like that. And again, that's just the very basics, because if you have not seen these movies, I do not want to just spoil them for you. But for those who have seen these movies, it's just that fantastic mix of unknown horror and descent into madness in both these films. From Beyond has a good amount of that fun 80s campiness. In the Mouth of Madness is a little more seriously, but it does have some elements of camp mixed throughout, just not nearly as much as From Beyond, which is another reason why they go well together. They are different enough from each other. Both movies have these great and very underrated villains when it comes to horror. In From Beyond, you have Dr. Pretorius, who, not to spoil too much, but he's killed by something in this other dimension, and then he's kind of connects with this thing in the other dimension, and every time he appears in the movie, he's different. He is deformed in some way or another every time he shows up in this film. And then you have Sutter Kane in The Mouth of Madness, who, is the creator of all these horror stories, and these horror stories are starting to make people go mad. and it's starting to seem that his creations from his movies are breaking into the real world. There's more to it than that, but I don't want to get into more of it if you have not seen it. Cosmic horror is one of those genres that you could easily get it wrong in how you handle it, but when you nail it, you make for some fantastic horror movies. And again, like I said at the beginning, I think The Thing, From Beyond, and In the Mouth of Madness are the best examples of cosmic horror. And for a cosmic horror double feature, I think the best way to go is From Beyond and In the Mouth of Madness. They are just so good. For our number 8 category, we're going with Italian horror. I'm a big Italian horror fan. I absolutely adore Italian horror. And my 2 favorite Italian horror movies are The Beyond and Cannibal Holocaust. Because Cannibal Holocaust is just a real punch-in-the-gut movie, and I just can never forget how that movie made me feel when I first watched it. But Cannibal Holocaust is not included in the double feature. When it comes down to it, for the Italian horror double feature, I think you have to go with The Beyond and Suspiria. Now, the reason I picked The Beyond and Suspiria is because Dario Argento and Lucio Fulci are some of the most notorious directors in Italian horror, along with Mario Bava. You can probably throw Sergio Martino, Umberto Lenzi, and Ruggero Deodato up there as well. But, you know, it's like Dario Argento, Lucio Fulci, and Mario Bava. They're definitely the most notorious Italian horror directors. And many would consider Suspiria to be Dario Argento's best movie, and many consider The Beyond to be Lucio Fulci's best movie. I am up there as well. People, you know, I've heard people also say Zombie and City of the Living Dead are Fulci's best movies, which I will not argue for that. But for the most part, it does seem that The Beyond is considered his best movie. And another reason why I put these 2 movies together, again, it's that thing where they're very different from each other, but there are similarities that connect them together. And the thing that connects Suspiria and The Beyond together is that idea of nightmare logic. Something that is common in both Dario Argento's movies and Lucio Fulci's movies is there's less focus on the story and more focus on creating the experience of a nightmare, creating the experience you would have as if you are having a nightmare while watching these movies. There is a story in their movies, but the story comes second to creating these visuals and scenarios that give you this nightmare experience. And I do think that Suspiria and The Beyond are the movies that capture that nightmare experience the best. Suspiria is a Technicolor masterpiece. It looks gorgeous. Even the kills look pretty in many ways, so that it's hard to look away from the screen even when the nasty stuff is happening on screen. The Beyond is beautiful in its own way. It's not as, probably not as colorfully stunning as Suspiria, but it does have its own beauty in how it shoots things in many different ways. Obviously, since The Beyond is one of my favorite Italian horror movies, I do like it more than Suspiria, but I will not say that The Beyond is better than Suspiria, and I will not say that Suspiria is better than The Beyond. They are very different movies, and they're both great in their own way, but I can completely understand why someone would prefer one over the other. Both movies have their iconic moments. You know, you have the iconic opening of Suspiria, you have the iconic razor wire scene in Suspiria, and then in The Beyond, you have, you know, this tarantula scene, and you have this, what most people, one of the things that people remember the most is this nasty scene in the morgue. So with the Italian double feature, I decided to pick what is considered by many to be the best movies from the 2 most notorious directors in Italian horror. Fulci fans and Argento fans unite for this very good double feature, in my opinion. In the number 9 category, we're going with serial killer movies. When it comes to the genres that I find the scariest in horror, It's anything to do with water and serial killers. I almost drowned when I was a kid, so whenever a horror movie or any movie in that, for that matter, involves water and having to be under the water for a long period of time or out in the open ocean, I find it terrifying. And serial killers scare the hell out of me. I find them fascinating in a terrifying way. So for my serial killer double feature, we're going with a very gnarly double feature with Maniac and Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer. This is one of those double features where you might have to take a shower between both movies because they both have this dirty nature to them that makes you feel uncomfortable. Maniac is one of my favorite movies of all time. Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer is one of those movies where the more I watch it, the higher it gets on my list of horror movies. It goes in the same category as movies like The Hitcher and Possession. So Hitcher, Possession, and Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer are movies that whenever I watch them, I find myself loving them more and they get higher on my list. Maniac is more of a fictional serial killer movie where it follows a guy who is not based on a real killer. Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer is an interesting movie because it is inspired by real-life killer Henry Lee Lucas, but it's inspired by the exaggerations of Henry Lee Lucas. This is something I've talked about before, but it's something I find fascinating. Henry Lee Lucas, when he was arrested for a couple murders, he started confessing to other murders, and people would go to him with a bunch of these cold cases, and he would confess to so many of them that people felt that they were finally able to close these cases. But as things went on, they realized that Henry had claimed to kill people in two locations that he could not be in at the same time. So he claimed to murder someone in one area and then claimed to murder somebody in another area, but in order for him to have murdered both these people, he would have to have been in two places at once. So it was found out that he was lying about a lot of these confessions he was making for the attention because it gave him sort of this celebrity status. So a lot of these cases that were closed had to be reopened because he lied about so much of it. And that's kind of what Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer is about. It's basically a fictionalized version of Henry Lee Lucas. You know, it's a movie about the exaggerations of Henry Lee Lucas, like what if he were telling the truth about all these things. It's an interesting exploration. And then you have Maniac with Frank Zito. This is, like I said, it's one of my all-time favorite movies. It's such a disturbing, very effective horror movie, and something that bugs me so much about when people say they don't like Maniac. You're free to not like Maniac if you want. I understand it's not everyone's cup of tea, but a lot of people say that Maniac is a very surface-level horror movie. They say, oh, it's a movie that doesn't really get into the killer's mind. When Maniac does get into the killer's mind, it just does it in a more subtle way. There's this one scene in Maniac, one of my favorite scenes in the movie, where he's not killing anybody. He's just sitting in this corner of his apartment where there's all these toys, these children's toys. He puts this baseball cap on and he starts playing with this toy and he starts crying while he's playing with this toy, which says so much about the character without having to tell you. You know, it shows you that this is a violent guy who's still a child inside of his mind, which creates for a very dangerous combination. Maniac tells you so much about Frank Zito in a visual way, and that's one of the reasons why I love it so much. It's a movie that focuses so much on visual storytelling. Okay, we're going to visually show you what's going on in this guy's head. We're not just going to flat out tell you what's going on in this guy's head. But even with that case, both movies are brutal when it comes to the kills. Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer is not as graphic as Maniac, but it still has plenty of graphic moments. Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer is really good at the off-screen kills. A scene that stands out to me so much in Henry, it's not necessarily my favorite kill of the movie, but it's one of my favorite kills, and it really sticks with me. he picks up this hitchhiker, a woman who's carrying this guitar, and then later on in the movie he visits his friend Otis in their apartment, and he has the guitar, and he gives it to Otis as a gift. It's in my opinion, one of the best off-screen kills, because your imagination goes wild. All you know is that he did something to this woman, but you don't know what. Just from the beginning, we saw him pick up this woman with a guitar, and now he has the guitar, and something happened to this woman. But yes, Maniac, Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer, a pretty rough double feature, but a great double feature. Just maybe take a break between the two, just to regain your senses a little. And now for my final category. This is not any genre. We're not focusing on a particular genre in this case. But in my opinion, these two movies would make for the best double feature, and that's why I picked these two. It may seem a little weird at first why I picked these two as a double feature, but let me explain it. For my opinion, for the best horror movie double feature, I'm picking The Thing and Tremors. An unusual combination, I understand, but stick with me here. These two movies together are what inspired me to do this list in the first place. I was just thinking about how good a double feature The Thing and Tremors is, and that it was the catalyst for me making this whole list. So, you have The Thing by John Carpenter. It's a bunch of people at a research station in Antarctica. One thing leads to another, and they have this alien loose in their station, which is a microscopic organism that whatever it touches, it can replicate genetically. And you have this amazing sense of paranoia as these people in this research station are dealing with this creature that can look like anybody. So you have these people trapped in this location with a creature that can absorb and replicate anyone, and the tension builds from there. And then you have Tremors, which is a very different movie. It takes place in Perfection, Nevada, in the middle of the desert. And you have this ragtag group of people in this small town dealing with these worm monsters that live under the ground. They can't see, but they hunt based on sound. And they hunt under the ground, and they whatever they hear, they kill and they eat. Very different movies, but they're very similar in many ways. So, getting into why I think these movies work so well together. It's very rare. I don't think there is such a thing as a perfect movie, but I think there are movies that are damn near perfect. And I think The Thing and Tremors are damn near perfect. A lot of horror movies will build up the tension and then release it in a suspenseful scene. And then you have the movies that accumulate tension around a specific idea. In The Thing, the tension revolves around the fact that you are dealing with a creature that can replicate anyone, that can look like anyone. You have that great line in this movie that sets up the suspense perfectly.
So how do we know who's human? If I was an imitation, a perfect imitation, how would you know if it was really me?
And then in Tremors, the tension is accumulated around the idea that these creatures live under the ground and they hunt based on sound. So not only do you have to be quiet, but you have to get off the ground. And it's very hard to get off the ground in many cases. Both movies have fantastic practical effects. The effects work in The Thing is so good, and there is some fantastic practical effects in Tremors. The scripts are so solid. Both movies have great setup and payoff for so much. But here's the main reason why I put Tremors and The Thing together in terms of a double feature. Both movies have the characters think. A common trope that you see in a lot of horror movies is characters being stupid and making bad decisions. And while that is understandable, I can understand, when people are in a stressful situation, they're going to make mistakes. That's completely understandable. But something that bugs me so much is when the only thing in a horror movie moving the plot forward is the fact that the characters are stupid. The fact that they are making dumb decision after dumb decision after dumb decision. In my mind, that is lazy writing. The characters in both The Thing and Tremors think. They both make plans. They think rationally. They try to find ways out of these situations. Like in The Thing, the characters will think of an idea and then things will still go wrong. Like, the characters come up with doing a blood test, mixing people's blood together, and then if someone is infected, their blood will try to assimilate normal blood. That's an idea. That's a smart way out of it. But then they discover that someone got to the blood. So you have a smart decision, but then something happens that allows things to still go wrong and allows for the characters to still be in danger. There's the infamous blood test scene where, MacReady figures out a way to test who's a thing and who's not, and that's such a great sequence. It's one of the best scenes in horror. And then you look at Tremors. Now, these characters aren't scientific researchers like we see in The Thing. They're normal, everyday people. They're more blue-collar people. But just because you're blue-collar doesn't mean you're stupid. And yes, while there's a big trope in the Tremors franchise is characters making a plan, saying, okay, we're in this situation, let's think of a plan to get out of this situation. That's one of the most common tropes in Tremors. Like there's a scene where the three characters are trapped on a rock, and yes, there's conveniently some wood nearby, but anyway, so these characters are trapped on a rock with one of the monsters below them waiting for them, and they gotta figure out a way to get from the rocks to the truck. And like I said, there's some convenient wood just laying by the rock, but the characters think, they're having a discussion, okay, how do we get out of this situation? And then they decide, hey, we can pole vault from one rock to the other, and we can stay away from where the creature can't get us. When the creatures start coming through the floorboards of the shop where they're hiding, they say, okay, let's get up onto the roof, and now they're higher, they're safe from the creatures. But then the creatures start digging away at learn to dig away at the buildings to make them collapse in on themselves. So the main characters are thinking, but the monsters are also thinking. So even though they're coming up with good ideas, the monsters are figuring things out, so even though smart decisions are being made, things are still going wrong. And then, of course, the scene where they're all trying to figure out how to get out of there, and this is spoilers for those who haven't seen Tremors, but they figure like a piece of heavy machinery that they can all drive out of town on that's too heavy for the creatures to lift. And that's a way that they can get everybody out of town and not have to worry about touching the ground. They have to figure out how to get to it, though, so they've set up a tractor to drive out to lure the creatures away because they'll follow the sound. Mild spoiler there, and I don't want to spoil anymore, but again, thinking. The characters make plans, they execute these plans, they're good plans, but then something goes wrong. Something inevitably goes wrong that no one would have thought of at the time, which allows for the danger to continue. You see that in The Thing, and you see that in Tremors, and it shows that you can have your characters be smart in your horror movies, but you can still have things go wrong. And then instead of the audience thinking, oh God, you're an idiot, why would you do that? Your audience is thinking, holy shit, that didn't work. I hope that makes sense. So yes, that's the main reason why, for me, The Thing and Tremors make for the best double feature. Both movies have great concepts that accumulate tension. Both movies have great practical effects. And both movies have characters that think. Both movies do not rely on stupidity to move the plot forward. They rely on intelligence to move the plot forward. And while Tremors is a horror comedy and there are some goofy moments in there, for the most part, like 99.9% of the time, the characters are thinking. And they're trying to come up with ways out of the situation. not just relying on stupidity to move the plot forward. And that goes for both Tremors and The Thing. I hope that makes sense, but yeah. Tremors and The Thing, great movies, and they go so well together. Making, for me, one of the best double features. And I hope you guys enjoyed this little list. I love me a good double feature, and there are a lot more double features that I could have thought of. There are plenty of genres that did not make it into this video, so if you're interested, I would not mind doing a part 2 with different subgenres in horror. So let me know if you're interested in that. And down below, give me some of your favorite horror movie double features. I'm very curious about this one because we all have our movies that we love to watch together. But the rule is no sequels. That's too easy. Do not just pick 2 sequels that go together. Pick 2 movies from different franchises that you think go very well together. But leave that down below. I'm very curious about this one. And with that, thank you all so much for joining me. I hope you enjoyed this top 10 list. And as always, I want to thank all of you for continuing to watch my little corner of YouTube. I do really appreciate it. Just the fact that, you know, people take time out of their day to watch my videos, and I think time is a very valuable thing to people, and the fact that you're taking time out of your day to watch my stuff truly does mean a lot to me. Thank you so much. But on that note, I hope you all have a good day or week. And with that, until next time, this is the Maniac, here to remind you that the Grindhouse will never die.